look at the spinning reels of this vintage tape recorder. In the 1980s, an unusual program at the Vacaville prison facility had inmates recording thousands of hours of bestsellers and textbooks into microphones, creating a library for the visually impaired. The program's most celebrated volunteer spent over 5,000 hours in the recording booth. He told reporters that he finally felt like he was doing something constructive for others. But this dedicated narrator was Edmund Kemper, the coed killer. By July of 2017, the prolific volunteer is a 68-year-old stroke survivor. He is wheeled into a sterile room for a parole consideration hearing, his massive frame now physically diminished and confined to a chair. The hearing is designed to look past the trophies he won for his charity work. The board is there to strip away 40 years of cooperative behavior and interrogate the brutal reality of his past crimes. Decades of documented good deeds and intensive therapy are on one side of the ledger. On the other is the core question: can a serial killer actually be rehabilitated, or does a psychopath simply learn the vocabulary required to mimic empathy? The interrogation begins at the beginning. The commissioners force Kemper to explain the first lives he took, his own grandparents, murdered when he was only 15 years old. Kemper justifies the double murder with a list of grievances. He complains his grandmother was assertive and was aggressive, while claiming he killed his grandfather out of a deep-seated fear. The commissioner looks at the physical reality of that day. At 15, Kemper was a massive 6'5", holding a rifle. His grandfather was 72 years old, unarmed, and was in the middle of carrying a bag of groceries into the house. The board then moves to his early 20s, when he began hunting students and teenagers who were hitchhiking through Central California. While discussing the aftermath of these killings, the commissioner uses the word dismembered. Kemper instinctively interrupts her to correct the record, arguing it was only a partial dismemberment, because he only took the heads. He offers a series of practical excuses for the mutilations. He tells the board he had to cut up 2 victims because he had a broken arm in a cast and couldn't carry them. For the others, he simply cites a feeling of frustration. In these moments, Kemper isn't discussing human lives. He treats the disposal of bodies as a sequence of logistical hurdles, a chore complicated by a bad arm or a moment of irritation. He is describing objects to be managed, not people he destroyed. The board eventually reaches the final murders, the killing of his mother and her close friend, Sally Hallett. Kemper explicitly deflects the blame for his entire crime spree onto his mother. He tells the board that as long as she lived, he wasn't going to stop killing strangers, essentially framing his violence as an unavoidable reaction to her behavior. His justification for killing his mother's friend is even more trivial. He frames it as an oath of revenge, claiming Sally ruined his mother's European vacation and deserved to pay for it. This is narcissistic deflection. The ego protects itself by forcefully pointing blame outward, to an assertive grandmother or ruined vacation. This mechanism operates in the 2017 hearing, too. As the female commissioner leads the questioning, Kemper compulsively interrupts, refusing to let her control the conversation. The physical violence of the 1970s has been replaced by a rigid need for verbal dominance. Decades of therapy haven't changed his drive to control the female authority figures in the room. At the conclusion of the hearing, the commissioners press Kemper for his current feelings regarding the lives he took. When asked what he would say to his grandparents now, his focus remains on the clinical details. He notes that they didn't know what happened to them, as if the speed of the execution somehow mitigates the act. When the board looks for genuine remorse, Kemper offers something else. He describes his crimes as an embarrassing memory, explaining that his actions were a diminishing of my manhood. This is the portrait of a model prisoner, a man who spent 40 years being helpful and productive. But that helpful persona is haunted by the transcript. A psychopath can learn the vocabulary of therapy and perform decades of constructive deeds, but true empathy cannot be manufactured. The underlying monster never changed. He simply ran out of victims.